Good morning, and welcome to the Workforce Development Webinar. We're brought to you today by the Ironworker Employers Association of Central Pennsylvania. And just a few housekeeping items before we move forward here. If you have questions, by all means, please submit them through the app. Add your comments or questions. We are recording the webinar, and we'll be sharing this via email after the webinar. So you'll be receiving copies of this. And also, we have some upcoming webinars on the same topic around workforce development on June 4th, as well as June 25th, and we encourage you to join us then as well. Today, we are going to be talking about the power of partnerships as it relates to workforce development within the construction industry. And as I mentioned before, this is the first of a three-part series. And why this is important for the industry is really focusing on the skilled craftsmen that are needed to work in the industry. As you can see, we looked at a variety of resources, but this is not just a national issue or a local issue. This is a regional and statewide issue as well. With 80% of contractors across the country reporting difficulty in hiring, 77% of contractors in the Northeast and in Pennsylvania, unfortunately, we're a little bit higher than average with 83%. But the biggest challenge that is related to this issue is 9 out of 10 contractors across the state have a need to hire. And that really puts this issue of workforce development front and center. And with me today, and by the way, my name is Chris Martin. I am their moderator today, and I am with Atlas Marketing. But joining me are two gentlemen who are really focused on this issue as it relates to the construction industry and workforce development. Tad Hoffmaster, who is with Enerfab, as well as the executive director of the Ironworker Employers Association of Central Pennsylvania, and Carrie Zettelmoyer, who is the business manager for the Ironworkers Local Number 404 out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Good morning, gentlemen, and thanks for joining me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, let's jump right in. Let's talk a little bit about the partnership here between the Ironworker Employers Association and the ironworkers as a whole. Tad, can you give us a little bit of information on the Ironworker Employers Association?
Yes, Chris. The Ironworker Employers Association includes all the signatory contractors to the local 404 agreement. That includes approximately 30 contractors, of which 6 or 7 actively participate in what the association tries to do on a daily basis. We were originally formed as an entity responsible for negotiation of the contract with local 404. Over the years, we've evolved into an organization that is more of a partner with the ironworkers local. We work with those guys to improve position in the industry. We help to manage the apprenticeship program. We work to develop additional training for journeymen. We provide trustees to serve on the different benefit funds for the ironworkers, and many other things.
You're saying. That's
Very
good.
busy.
Carrie, can you help us understand what the services are that the ironworkers provide?
The ironworkers were chartered in 1896. The local chartered in 1926. Basically in central Pennsylvania here, the 17 counties up the middle, which recently expanded to the 35 or parts of the 35 counties in eastern PA due to a merger. Back in the early 1900s when it started, the primary function of the union was worker rights and safety. While those issues are important to us today, there's a lot of state and federal laws in place that weren't in place back then that are in place now. Today, the relationship with the contractors and the union is more of a partnership. You know, when the contractor has a need, for workers or training, we provide the qualified, competent individuals that they require.
The word partnership, and I've heard this the type of partnership that you refer to as a three-legged stool. Um, Tad, can you help us understand what that means um, in terms of for the owners in particular?
Sure. Obviously, Carrie and I wouldn't have a job if we didn't have the owners offering projects for us to perform out there. Um, Owners expect the contractors to provide an adequate skilled labor force to meet their project requirements, both with regard to safety, schedule, and budget. In many cases, owners will try and partner directly with the local unions and develop a project labor agreement. They're very nice to work under, makes a good work environment, makes it easy to provide the right kind of guys they need.
From your perspective, how does this three-legged stool work for the union?
It's the owner, the contractor, and the union working together to have a successful project. That's the real difference for our employers. They have a herring hall to come to, where the non-union contractors don't have somebody to go to. Our employers come tell us what training they need, what they're seeing changing in the industry, and we try to react to that to provide the owner with a better project.
Thanks for giving us that understanding. Now that we understand your organizations a little bit better, can you tell me about the relationship between the Employers Association and Local 404? Carrie, could you start that off, please?
Okay, it really begins with our herring hall. When the contractor has a need that they can't fulfill themselves, they call the union, and we have a pool of individuals that are trained. We try to find the best candidate, the best worker to meet the needs that the contractor has on that particular project.
Carrie just mentioned the project itself. Can you talk a little bit about successfully completing projects together?
Yeah, most of the contractors, including us, employ a number of iron workers year round. I know it's in our case, and I'm sure in most of the other contractors' cases, we actually elevate iron workers in a lot of cases to other positions in the company. We have guys that work as estimators, guys that work as project managers. In some cases, some of the owners are former iron workers. We typically support the day-to-day work that we do with guys from our own forces that we employ year round. When we get into trouble or when we need additional support from Carrie is when we have large projects or multiple projects, multiple smaller projects going on at the same time. In those cases, typically we can't support that with our own forces, so we call the hall and get guys to come in and fill the spaces we need. During plant outages and shutdowns, the workforce requirement can vary significantly from day to day. Without having a hiring hall to go to get additional people, we wouldn't be able to support the needs on a day-to-day basis.
Carrie, Tad just mentioned that day-to-day basis. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is from the union's perspective?
Well, we have a pool of individuals that are trained with the OSHA, MSHA, standard like safety training, qualified rigger, signalmen. We have AWS. We are an AWS accredited welding facility. So a number of our members have the welding certs that the employer might need. And the idea is that the employees are ready to go, the day they hit the job site, that the employer doesn't have to spend time, training them on the basic skill sets.
Thanks, guys, for talking about the relationship there. So let's start to talk a little bit about the myths that are associated with union construction. Tad, first, why do you think that people feel union construction costs more?
Well, typically, if you look at just an hourly cost, the union employees are going to be higher than the non-union employees. But in most cases, that can be offset with the productivity that's provided by the union employees. You know, they go through a significant amount of training, and that additional training results in, I mean, specifically, it results in higher productivity.
Activity brings on a little bit of a level of professionalism. And Carrie, I'm sure you hear the opposite. What are your thoughts that union construction is unprofessional?
Our guys are business partners with the contractors that they're working for. They are iron workers. They're not, another trade. They do iron work on a day-to-day basis. And when the contractor has a need for iron workers, we dispatch them out, and they're there to go to work and go home safely, complete the project.
Perspective as a contractor, it's completing the project with the right people is important. So tell me, how do you combat the question of manpower on the job?
Like I mentioned earlier, the first thing we do is try and man projects with our own forces. In a lot of cases, that's not possible. So we call Carrie, and we're able to secure guys through the union hall, guys with the skills we need to do the work. If they don't have enough guys, Carrie will go out nationwide and try and recruit people. I mean, the locals across the nation have the same capabilities and the same training. So we know we're going to get the same caliber of people no matter where we go. I've been on projects recently where we've had guys from Baltimore and guys from Florida and guys from out in the West. They just come from all over the place to fill the needs.
And to that point, Chris, our national organization holds a train-the-trainer training every, I think it's July, where the local sends instructors to get brought up to speed on whatever training they need to bring back to the local to train the members so that they're, capable and able to go to work for the employer when they have the need.
And when that need arises, that's where the union starts to really work harder and really protect those rights. So Carrie, what do you say about those who feel the union is only out there to protect the workers?
I would say that's not true. Maybe years ago that was, but now the union is, and the members they know they're in a partnership with the employer. Without the employer, we don't have a job. And they realize that now.
So let's move forward and talk a little bit about the training, in particular the ironworker training. And Tad, can you help us understand from your perspective as an employer, what does it take behind the scenes to get ironworkers ready for those jobs?
Well, as a contractor, when we call the hall to get an iron worker, we're confident that they have the basic skills and knowledge to perform their duties. Individual contractors don't have to spend time and resources to provide the basic training that we require. There's many different facets of the work these guys cover in the apprenticeship training. It's not just erecting steel. That's a big part of it. They learn steel erection. They go through welding courses. They learn to install rebar. They work with ornamental and miscellaneous steel. They learn crane signals. They learn different aspects of rigging. And they also go through significant safety training. They get OSHA 300. They get MSHA training. They learn CPR. They get first aid. So it's quite a program. Covers a lot of material.
Barry, can you talk a little bit more on what that training is and what does it mean for the owners and contractors who are going to hire your folks?
Here at Local 404, we have a 3-year apprenticeship, and it's over 200 hours a year in the classroom training. And then along with that, they're out working in the field for over 1,500 hours with journeymen. Usually it's a minimum of a 4 journeyman to 1 apprentice ratio. And the idea behind that is you have 4 journeymen looking after the 1 apprentice, teaching them little tricks that they've learned over their 30 or 40-year career and some best practices. So it meshes well together, to provide a really competent journeyman at the end of the 3-year program.
And obviously that really helps to build up the partnership aspect of the relationship. So let's talk a little bit now about that relationship and what its impact on the business side of construction. Tad, can you talk a little bit about how that relationship is to owners in particular?
When owners come to us with a project, I think every contractor goes through the same process. We start with an estimate, and that estimate is established based on taking estimated quantities off of whatever information the owner provides us. And then we apply specific productivity factors to those quantities. Contractors need to have confidence that the labor force is prepared to meet those productivity levels. We also need to have confidence they can do the work safely and with high quality. Owners expect us to do these things without any injuries, and they expect the work to be done correctly. With the work that these guys put into their training programs, we know that the guys we get are going to be able to meet those needs.
That the training is a huge part of this. And Carrie, can you talk a little bit about what you feel is the biggest benefit to owners?
The ability to know that the individuals on their project are proficient in what they do. They are iron workers, they're qualified riggers, they certified welders, they're ready to go, men and women, what they do.
With that, are there any other business advantages specific to what owners need and what they're looking for?
I think their expectations are always changing. Years ago, the safety expectations weren't as high. There was no drug testing. I think just a lot different than they are today. And again, through the process of the apprenticeship program, these guys learn all the skills they need. They get the proper safety training. We're sure the guys are drug tested annually. Even the journeymen get upgrades as required to meet the changing demands of our owners.
And for our employers, most of them, Tad, he has to participate, but they don't have to worry about the health care, that they're going to provide their employees. That's taken care of through trustees, from the union and the employers association. And the guys really don't have to worry about, pensions, health care, if their wife's surgery is going to be covered next week. There's a whole administration staff that takes care of that, and they're very fond of their insurance.
Is a huge factor for the iron workers in the field as well as in the office.
Yeah, the employers, yes, they don't have to deal with that. Dad does.
So let's move on now, and hopefully the people that are engaged with us here are starting to see how this relationship and the partnership that we talk about is really going to start to develop into addressing this worker shortage and the worker demand, and that's where we're going to start to talk about a little bit next. So with that, gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about how projects are completed. Talk about the experience from your perspectives. Again, Tad on the employer or contractor side, and Carrie on the business manager agent union side.
From the union side and the lost time accidents that the contractors experience, we had started years ago a supplemental welfare fund, and this just demonstrates how the accidents have significantly dropped off over the years. I think we were at a $4 a month contribution. We're down to $1 a month contribution, and the bank accounts building. It provides funds for when guys are hurt on the job to help, with the workers' comp that wasn't in place years ago. But like I said, over the years, we've been able to reduce the contributions due to the fact that there's not as many lost time accidents in the workplace.
And I think ultimately the contractors need to meet the needs of our customers. And that applies to safety, it applies to schedule, it applies ultimately, bottom line is to cost. And through the apprenticeship program and the safety training that these guys provide, the emphasis that's put on safety today is significant. And these guys come out of the schools, they understand what they need to do, they go to work. We go through a lot of projects with 0 injuries or 0 incidents. And we need those kinds of projects because that drives down the cost. It drives down the incident rates, which drive down the insurance rates, and it reduces lost time, reduces absenteeism. These guys have come a long way, and safety is a big part of what we do, and that translates into lower costs. Another cost that's somewhat reduced by having a flexible workforce here is, we share employees as contractors. So we don't have to carry the burden of their costs throughout the year, including just their base hourly wage, but also their benefits.
And by using apprentices, the contractors are able to reduce their overall crew costs, and we're training the next generation of workers by doing that as well.
That I'm hearing, and Tad, you mentioned earlier in one of the previous discussion points on, the higher costs as it relates to the individual wages, but here you're talking about the actual savings from sharing workforce, and Kerry just mentioned lowering overall crew costs with apprentices. One of the questions that we've received is, how do you manage these inconsistencies that come within the industry? Could you guys talk about that before we move on?
I mean, it's constant communication with the employer and the owner. I mean, that's what it all boils down to. I call Tad sometimes 5, 6 times a day, sometimes once a day, but he always picks up. He does the same. And all our employers are that way with our agents. They're constantly talking to them, 9 o'clock at night, 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever's needed.
That
I forget what the question was, Chris. You want to start?
What
What's your
am I trying to get
point?
to?
What are you
So
trying
the
to
question was, how do you manage the inconsistencies? And Kerry just mentioned the overall communications, and where agents and business managers are constantly communicating with employers. Can you add anything to that?
This construction is constantly in a state of change, and owners' expectations are always changing. So we talked about it earlier, but what we do is work with Kerry to try and make sure that the workforce is trained to the best of our ability, and that means meeting any new needs that come. We're constantly rearranging the curriculum to make sure it meets the newest requirements in the construction industry.
Yeah,
I was distracted.
Fair enough. Well, I think that your point on communication that you both make, it really kind of sets us up for the next slide here, or the next discussion point, which is, what's the plan to meet this worker shortage demand? And let's be honest, that's why everyone is interested in this topic and in this discussion. So tell me a little bit about the plan that both you and Kerry and Tad have worked together to develop to handle and manage this worker shortage in at least the central Pennsylvania area.
Well, it's very difficult to gauge what future demand is going to be. We work through multiple resources to try and come up with an idea and project what things are going to look like in future years. In many cases, the owners are forthcoming, and they let us know what their 5 and 10 year budgets are. So they're looking ahead, trying to give us the opportunity to prepare for that. As soon as we have this information, we try and communicate with Carrie and let them know what we think are coming. And then together we try and adjust the number of apprentices in the program to make sure it meets our future needs.
As a local, Chris, we're always taking applications. We have a new program through our international called a probationary membership, which enables us to, get individuals from the construction industry that might have some of the skill sets that aren't brand new, like an apprentice, that we can get them out to work, try them, see what they know, see where they're falling short, see how we can supplement them to make them journeymen, to make them fit in with us so that they're the product that our employers need.
We do a lot of work nationally in the construction industry, and I have to say, hearing what you guys are working toward and working ahead of the game, so to speak, is ahead of a lot of other areas in the country. So hats off to both of you for working that hard and seeing that foresight. But tell me a little bit, Carrie, if you can. We've talked offline about having that balance between apprentices, journeymen, and even retirees. Can you talk a little bit about that and what is it that 404 is doing to manage this?
We have over 650 active members now that are ready to go to work, and we're always evaluating, who's retiring, who left the industry, what work's coming up, and that's where we talk to our employers and the owners as much as we can, trying to project what the construction industry in Eastern Pennsylvania looks like, what projects are in the pipeline, not that they all come through, some of them fall through, some of them pop up out of nowhere. Tad will have needs sometimes with outages that, I think he got a call last night at 1:45 in the morning. Something broke down at one of the power plants here and he needed people. So we just try to manage all that the best we can.
And with that, let's start to shift a little bit and go to the current workforce availability. Carrie, you had just mentioned the number of members and where you are, but could you talk a little bit about how the union is working to manage that, and how that is working currently for you?
Well, it's just constant communication with the employer. If we're recruiting new apprentices, we're evaluating guys on non-union projects, seeing, who looks like they know what they're doing, encourage them to join the union, things of that nature.
Yeah, I think we all hope and anticipate that the economy is going to keep growing and that our demand for employees is going to keep growing. I know the current crop of apprentices, the current classes, distribution of the classes, we're going to graduate how many guys? 70 guys in the next?
Yeah, this year alone, there's 34, I think, that graduate, and then another 30 next year. So through this merger, we ended up with a group of individuals, apprentices, all in like the same year, which we got to try to spread that out because we only have so many welding booths, things like that, so many areas to train. We're looking at expanding that. But anyhow, it's difficult to manage.
And we do work together to try and make sure we have the resources to meet the training needs as well. Carrie works to get grants through the state. Part of the funding for the association goes to help provide some of those resources.
And our national labor management group supports with grants as well as the state and counties.
The earlier statement of communication and relationship and a partnership is very evident, just from hearing you guys speak and what you just mentioned there as a joint partnership to continue to the apprenticeship training and moving the program forward. Let's talk a little bit about that relationship as a whole. Tad, can you talk about? Let's take it from your each individual perspective. Again, Tad being on the employer side and Carrie on that union side. Can you talk a little bit about what you feel is the relationship advantage? And Tad, if you
I can tell you a lot of the work that we do is emergency type work. I mean, a significant portion of our base work is maintenance, and along with that maintenance, when a customer has something break down, they call us to come in and do the repairs. So in a lot of cases, we need people in a real hurry. So typically what we would do is pull some of our own guys, some of our regular guys, put them on a project, and then call Carrie to try and fill in the bulk of the manpower that we need to do those jobs. Would not be possible without having to pull qualified guys to do the work. So without Carrie, in most cases, we would really struggle to man a lot of jobs.
And that's what sets us apart, our employers, union employers from the non-union, is they have somewhere to go uh, with their needs, somebody to listen, somebody to try to react. That time sensitive, difficult, that's where we seem to really excel.
can you talk a little bit more about those complex jobs and the time sensitive aspect? Can you expand upon that a little bit, please?
It's a lot of times it's the larger power projects, things of that nature where, the price of gas is down cheap now, so they want to build a lot of combined cycle plants. And when we first merged the locals in 2017, we had 5 combined cycle plants under, build at that time period. Each of those jobs probably had at least 70 iron workers at a minimum on it. So it's just the communication, trying to get people from the eastern part of the state, New York, all to those projects. And the open line of communication with those employers that were on those projects. That's what makes it work, communication.
Yeah, I mean, contractors and the union membership both understand that we rely on each other to get these projects done. We couldn't complete projects safely, on time, and on budget without having a skilled workforce. Without the union, without contractors, the union membership doesn't have anywhere to go to work. And without the union members, we wouldn't be able to get our projects completed.
I think it's fair, just listening to you, to say that the advantage of the relationship between the Ironworker Employers Association and Local 404 is based on a few things: communication, an understanding of each other's needs. But let's take it one step further, and let me ask you this question: what do you feel is, if you were in front of a group of owners right now, what would you share with them about the relationship that you have?
I think we both have the same expectation of the people. They've got to come out and they've got to do the job safely, and they've got to be productive. They've got to have the basic skills and knowledge to accomplish that.
It's very professional. We both know that we can't succeed without each other. Our members are thankful for the job that they have, and they want to do the best job that they can, so that the next time there's a need, that they're able to go to work for that particular employer.
Perfectly and straightforward and well said, both of you. Thank you. So with that, we've got about 10 minutes left. Are there any questions from those that are attending, or if we want to move forward with some others with the discussion as well? Feel free to fire away with your questions. We've received one so far, but we certainly can answer any more that you have. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, let's move forward then. And at this point, kind of pulling a recap together of this, let me ask you both this. What do you feel as far as the worker shortage demands are necessary that you're both going to be working toward next?
I think right now it's looking forward to recruiting additional apprentices. You know, with the number of graduates we're going to have in the next few classes, we've got to find some people that have the capabilities to learn all this information and then take it to the field.
And we need to work to provide them with to do that. So that's, in there lies the challenge. If we have large numbers of unemployment, it's hard to bring new guys in as apprentices to sit on the out of work bench. So that's the constant balance that we're always struggling with.
As far as next steps for this workforce development, I mean, you had mentioned and talked about the training. You talked about incorporating more apprentices into the mix. Terry, you just mentioned that balance. Is there anything else that we should be considering in this issue as it relates to the area that you both work in?
And one thing that we do use as well is probationary employees who have some level of skill and have worked in other areas in construction. They're looking to change fields. We try and encourage those guys to take a look at the iron workers. In many cases, they have some of the basic safety understanding and how to get around on a construction site. So we try and look at bringing those types of people in, and then maybe positioning them maybe not the very beginning of the apprenticeship program, but somewhere in the program so that they can learn the other skills that they need.
Last comment, and this is more from my perspective, working with both of you and knowing you both of you for quite some time now, is how your relationship is so interdependent upon each other. I commend both of you for the foresight to pull this webinar together and really take the time to talk about it and discuss it, because I know it's a topic of your conversations, whether it's over a beer or on the fishing boat. So congratulations to both of you for taking this on and moving it forward. Go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So with that, we're wrapping up a little bit early, but not too early, so that's good. But we want to thank you for attending the webinar. Again, this is the first of a three-part series where we're going to talk about workforce development in a variety of different ways and from different angles. Tad, Carrie, thank you both for taking the time, and like I said earlier, the foresight to address this. Again, we have recorded this and we'll be sharing with you recorded copies of the presentation. And on behalf of the Ironworker Employers Association of Central Pennsylvania and the Ironworkers Local Number 404 out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, thank you for attending. And please, by all means, if you have any questions, let us know through email and we'll address them.